you've spent the last 2 years putting together your thoughts, I guess, in a book format. What inspired you
3.5 years.
Has it been 3.5
Yeah.
years? Wow. What inspired you to start that?
So a few years ago, when in the early days of social media, one of the first posts I put up was a picture of me having my last drink. Did I share the story with you? My last drink.
Yeah.
Someone happened to take a photo of it.
Right.
And I have the picture, and I like, if I were to show it to you, you'd be like, "That's not you. Who is this guy?
Who's this guy?" Yeah.
This is not the guy who's sitting in front of me." And I put it up, and I spoke about my battle with alcohol, and how it was something that challenged me over the years, and how I got to a point wherein, I made the decision to stop drinking, to go alcohol free. It was a simple post. And I got a flood of messages. And a few of them started asking me questions. And then they asked more questions. Then they asked more questions. And next thing I know, 2 months have gone by, and I'm having a regular DM exchange with, a few individuals. And the messages that were coming in were, you changed my life. Like this post empowered me, or gave me the awareness that I can do it too. And that it's the best thing for me at this point in my life, just like how you described it. And it's in my book. That was the first incident. Fast forward a few years later, I'm giving a talk, and this talk there were several speakers, and the theme was, your biggest mess ups, like the biggest mess up that you've had in your life, like that's the talk, right? So TEDx style, you're on stage and you're talking about, the biggest disaster that you've had in life. And I spoke about, and there were some incredible speakers there. There was a guy who was on a plane that crashed, and he's talking about how, what he did minutes before the plane crashed, the calls he made, what that conversation was like, just really vulnerable, like raw, experience that was being shared. It was just incredible. And there were all sorts of different speakers there, and I shared a story that was a seminal moment where I made a decision to chase the outer game instead of the inner game, and the price that I paid. So basically the decision was, I was at a crossroads where a client called me saying, we need you to come to London for a meeting. And I looked at the calendar, and Jasmine was due 3 weeks out. And I had to make that, big time decision. And I jumped on that plane reluctantly, right? With her reluctant approval, I jumped on that plane to chase the deal. And I didn't make it back on time. Completely missed the birth of my first child. So that moment, when you're told that it's a boy, it's a girl, I didn't have that feeling, that experience. And I'm sharing this, and after the talk, I got approached by a few people who weren't in the same situation, but had moments where they messed their priorities up. Like they went with something that wasn't of a higher priority or wasn't aligned with their values. And the impact that had on them, like hearing that firsthand and hearing like them telling me that, look, this helped us really understand how we need to realign our priorities, how we're saying yes to things and what we're saying no to is of higher value. And so I thought, what? Maybe it's time to write a book. Because this is going to help people. And if anything, it's for me to also heal from everything that's happened. It was a very cathartic. I've always journaled. I've been journaling for 15 years. And every time I write something down, there's this cathartic release. And I thought, okay, well, what if I do that with the book? Like, who would I be after I've written the book? Like, what kind of transformation would I go through in terms of healing from all the wounds and all the trauma?
It's interesting you say that, because it's almost like the last bit. The whole thing is interesting, mate, obviously. But that last bit, because a lot of the time I think people write books for the outer game, to New York Times bestseller, whatever, charts, I don't know how it goes, sell 1 million copies, make $1 million. But it sounds like this is just your journal.
This is
not just.
Without a doubt, it's my journal.
Wow.
And when people ask me, like, should I write a book? I think everyone should write a book. If you're journaling, you already have a book. You have a book right there, and you're remarkable.
Yeah.
Right? You've got a book. It's there. It's just about putting it together in a manner that flows. That's it. The book's there. The content's there.
So should someone buy your book? Or why should someone buy your book?
Why should someone buy my book? I think it comes down to intention. My intention is to share stories where I felt stuck. So who is this book really for? The book is for people the underdogs, like people who feel that they don't belong, who may have a little bit of imposter. You show up, maybe it's a Track Tuesday and you feel like everyone else is a lot faster than I am. Do I really deserve to be here? Am I really in group 5 or am I really in group 6 or 7? All that chatter that I have. And so it's for the person who feels that they don't belong, the imposter syndrome, which is a real thing in every facet of our lives, right? It's for people who feel that they're stuck, that there's another level. They know there's another level, but they just can't seem to access it. What are the tools to access that next level? So it's a guide. It's a blueprint of how to figure out, going back to your question, how do you figure out what you want? I've got 35 questions that are backed by quantum linguistics and years of science around psychology specifically on how to really peel the layers to get to the essence of what it is that you want. It's also for people who are now winning the inner game, but need a structure or a book. I've structured this book in a way wherein it's a book that it took me 3.5 years because I wanted it to be really simple. And to birth something that's simple is complex.
100%.
So it's a book that I would read every year. Because there are all these different interventions and exercises that I can do in one book. So I've collected and compressed everything that I've learned in the last 15 years that have been transformative for me and for people around me into this one guide, a blueprint.
Could it have taken shorter, but why did it take 3.5 years?
Yeah, great question. So it would have been a lot quicker so I was working with a ghostwriter. The intention wasn't right. So like I said, it's been a journey. I've learned so much about myself. And we were working on it together and we got it to twice the size of this book right now. This is 240 pages. It was over 600 pages. And I went to a publisher and we were going through the process of publishing the book. And this comes down to really like science. I'm a big believer in science. And we're going through this process of editing the book and getting to, the book cover and the whole journey of getting the book from manuscript to a book in hand. And on the 59th minute of the 11th hour, the publisher, there were two partners in this company, had a massive fallout. And the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. And I get a call from my relationship manager, and he said, Dhiren, look, I'm sorry, but we're not going to be able to publish your book. This just happened. And the first thing I did was cry. The second thing I did was read my manuscript again. And then I read it again. And I read it again. And I realized that, look, you know what? No, there's something about this that doesn't resonate. So I went through the whole process all over again. Rewrote from a blank screen. And wrote this book from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why you've changed the title.
I changed the title. Yeah.
That's
everything
incredible.
changed.
Is the message and is what it's brought to you similar though? Or what you wanted it to bring to you? Stick with the first one. The message, is it the same or is it different? Have you written 2 books or is it 1 book?
I've written 2 books.
Right. Wow.
The message of this book is really all about taking on things that are uncomfortable, hence the title, Bring It On. And it's about having a very clear vision. Like what is it that you want? What do you want to achieve? And why do you want to achieve it? Like what gets you up in the morning? Why do you do what you do? Right? So that's the message. It's really about, going back to what you said earlier, it's about self-awareness.
That's cool.
It's about, my intention of writing this book is to help people become more self-aware by sharing the level and the journey of how I was sleepwalking to having some level of awareness.